3 weeks after a ballistic missile launched from Iranian soil killed 14 American service members at Al Tanf garrison in Syria, a strike that Washington publicly called an act of war. The National Security Council convened for the last time before the order was signed. The intelligence picture on the table was damning. Satellite imagery from commercial providers confirmed what the CIA had been tracking for 6 months. Iranian engineers, working alongside Russian technical advisors, had spent 2 years quietly upgrading Iran's air defense network after Israel systematically dismantled the S-300 batteries in October 2024. The new system, an indigenously built long-range phased-array radar platform backed by Chinese-supplied fiber-optic command and control architecture, was now operational across 3 mountain ranges in western Iran. Beijing had provided something even more dangerous than missiles. They had provided integration. Iran's air defense, its missile forces, its naval assets in the Gulf, for the first time in history, they could all talk to each other in real time through a hardened communications backbone that Russian engineers had helped bury 60 meters underground. The Pentagon's assessment was blunt. Every week we wait, the network gets harder to crack. The president signed the execute order at 0200. Are you starting to feel the weight of this? Because what comes next, this is where it gets real. 2 carrier strike groups. Separated by 2,400 kilometers of geography, synchronized to the second. Aboard the Eisenhower, an EA-18G Growler from VQ-141 Shadowhawks has been airborne for 3 hours, flying lazy circles over international waters while its ALQ-249 electronic warfare suite silently drinks in every radar emission leaking from the Iranian coast. The jet systems officer isn't transmitting a single what. Just listening. Cataloging. Building a map of every gap, every blind spot, every frequency Iran's Russian-designed ground stations are using to stitch their coverage together. He's been doing this every night for 11 days. By now, he knows Iran's air defense network better than the Iranian operators running it. 600 kilometers to the east, aboard the Lincoln, the Air Wing commander is doing the last check on a strike package that took 4 months to build. 47 aircraft. 18 target sets. 3 countries providing targeting data via encrypted Link 16 feeds, including imagery from an Israeli Oran intelligence aircraft that has been orbiting over friendly airspace for 7 hours, quietly refining GPS coordinates to within single-digit meters. And underneath the Lincoln, in water cold enough to kill you in 20 minutes, 3 Virginia-class submarines are already moving. They've been moving for days. Tell me in the comments, which element of this operation do you think is most critical? The electronic warfare? The submarines? Or something else entirely? Because the answer might surprise you. The first weapon fired is not a cruise missile. It's not a fighter jet. It's a drone that costs less than a used pickup truck. A wave of low observable U.S. platforms, reverse-engineered, mass-produced, $28,000 per airframe, crosses the Iranian coast at 90 knots and 200 feet. They carry a mix of decoy emitters and small warheads. From an Iranian radar operator's perspective, they look identical to a real attack. Because they are a real attack, just not the main one. The Iranian Air Defense Commander at a newly upgraded missile battery in Fars province makes the call his training demands. He engages. His system fires a surface-to-air missile worth over $900,000. It destroys a drone worth $28,000. Then it fires again. And again. Every time it fires, 2 things happen. The magazine gets lighter, and the radar transmits. And that transmission is being received by an F-35I crossing the Iraqi border 340 kilometers away, flying without a single emission of its own, passively mapping the precise geolocation of every Iranian system that dares to turn on. The Iranian operator doesn't know he's spending his ammunition and simultaneously painting a bullseye on his own position. He's playing checkers. The coalition is playing something he's never seen before. Here's the detail that will keep you up at night. By the time the first Tomahawk missile reaches the coast, Iran's 2 forward air defense batteries have expended 34% of their interceptor magazines chasing decoys. This is where Russia's contribution becomes relevant, and terrifying. The SA-X-23 derivative system that Russian engineers helped Iran configure over the previous 18 months had a genuine 160-kilometer engagement envelope. Against legacy platforms, it was formidable. Against F-15s and F-16s flying predictable ingress routes, it would have been decisive. But it was built to fight the last war. The F-35 is entering Iranian airspace don't fly predictable routes. Their mission computers ingest real-time threat data from every other platform in the formation and automatically generate evasive routing that no human pilot could calculate in time. The aircraft is essentially navigating around the radar beams in near real time, slipping between coverage cones like water through fingers. The Iranian battery commander watches his display. He's getting intermittent contacts. Ghost returns. Nothing he can lock. He knows something is coming. He can't prove it with his radar. He makes the decision every air defense officer dreads. He goes to full power continuous track to force a lock. The moment he does, he announces his position to every passive sensor in the formation. The AGM-88G anti-radiation missile from an orbiting Super Hornet is already off the pylon before the Iranian operator fully processes what's happening. It accelerates past Mach 2.5. Its multi-mode seeker doesn't care if the radar shuts down mid-flight. It already has the address memorized. Russia's gift to Iran, 2 years of engineering, tens of millions in hardware, lasts 22 seconds of full transmission before it's a smoking crater in the Zagros foothills. China's contribution was subtler, and in some ways, more dangerous. The hardened fiber optic command and control network connecting Iran's missile forces, air defenses, and naval assets had been designed to survive an air campaign. The nodes were buried deep. The routing was redundant. It was, genuinely, the most sophisticated communications backbone Iran had ever operated. It had one vulnerability: the physical entry points, where the underground network connected to surface terminals at military bases, couldn't be hidden from overhead imagery. U.S. Cyber Command, working with Allied intelligence services, had spent 8 months mapping every node. And at 0812, while Tomahawk missiles were still in flight over the Gulf, a coordinated cyber operation pushed through a zero-day exploit into the Chinese-supplied network management software that Iranian technicians were using to monitor the system. Iran's internet collapsed to 4% of normal capacity within minutes, confirmed in real time by independent network monitoring services. But the military communications backbone held for about 11 more minutes. Then the physical strikes on the surface terminals began. Without communications, Iran's dispersed missile brigades in the western mountains couldn't receive updated targeting coordinates. They couldn't confirm launch authorization. They were powerful, isolated, and increasingly confused, exactly the conditions the strike planners had designed for. Are you seeing the layered logic here? Every piece feeds the next. This isn't just firepower, it's a system designed to make the enemy unable to think before they can even try to fight back. What do you think? Is this kind of warfare more or less terrifying than a traditional battle? This is the part that keeps IDF planners awake at night, even in victory. 30 F-15 IRAMs fanning out across Lorestan, Kermanshah, and Khuzestan province on one mission: find and destroy mobile ballistic missile launchers before they fire. The physics are brutal. An IRGC crew can drive a medium-range ballistic missile out of a hardened mountain tunnel, erect it, fuel it, and launch in under 25 minutes. Then the truck disappears back underground before the next satellite pass. The drone footage from one intercept captured something that became one of the defining images of the operation. A narrow valley in the Zagros. Infrared. A missile already vertical on the launcher, a Fateh 110 variant with enough range to reach Tel Aviv. Ground crew at the base. Last fuel connections being made. The Israeli weapons officer orbiting above has a clean shot. He holds. The calculations are running in his head in real time. If the Spice glide bomb impacts too early, the missile could topple clear, damaged, not destroyed. The warhead could survive. Could be salvaged. He needs the fuel already loaded. He needs the crew at the base. He needs everything committed. 10 seconds. 15. The crew steps back from the umbilical. He releases 12 seconds of guided flight. The warhead detonates at the junction of launcher and chassis. 3 tons of liquid propellant ignite in a secondary fireball that blinds the infrared camera for 2 full seconds. When the image returns, the valley floor is scorched concrete gray. They don't catch them all. They never could. Some Iranian missiles do launch. The Arrow 3 batteries over Israel, upgraded with components that American engineers helped integrate in the weeks before the operation, intercept most of them. Most. Not all. And this is the part of the story that no victory briefing will ever fully address. The missiles that get through are not a military failure. They are the cost of a war that nobody wanted and everybody chose. Iran spent decades building the capability to close the Strait of Hormuz, the choke point through which 20% of global oil flows every single day. Swarm boats, shore-based missile batteries, Kilo-class submarines loaded with mines. By 0935, the submarine piers at Bandar Abbas are rubble. The fast attack boat shelters at Jask, the ones designed to protect the Ghadar-class mini-submarines, took direct hits from 2,000-pound penetrating munitions delivered by F divided by a -18E Super Hornets from the Lincoln's air wing. The reinforced concrete roofs that were designed to stop shrapnel discovered they were not designed to stop a weapon that arrives with the kinetic energy of a freight train. The shore-based anti-ship missile battery on the coastal bluff, the one whose radar had been tracking the carrier group for 3 days, ceased to exist courtesy of 2 small-diameter bombs and a targeting solution refined over 72 hours of passive surveillance. The straits sat open. The global oil market, which had spiked 34% in the 3 weeks of diplomatic crisis preceding the operation, began recovering within hours of the first news reports confirming the naval strikes. By 1400 local time, Iran's air defense network was functionally suppressed. Its naval offensive capability in the Gulf was dismantled. Its ballistic missile stockpile, the one positioned to strike American bases across the Middle East and Israeli cities, had been reduced by an estimated 60 to 70% through a combination of pre-launch destruction and air interception. Russia's hardware had performed exactly as advertised, against adversaries that weren't running 5th-generation sensor fusion and 3-dimensional electromagnetic warfare. China's communications network had been the most resilient element of Iran's defense. And it still fell. But here's what I want to leave you with, and I want your honest answer in the comments. This operation worked because of absolute air superiority, years of intelligence preparation, and an enemy that, despite Russian and Chinese help, was ultimately fighting alone. What happens when the enemy isn't alone? What happens when the next conflict involves an adversary with its own stealth aircraft, its own cyber capabilities, its own carrier groups? That's a different video. And based on what's happening in the Taiwan Strait right now, it might need to be made sooner than any of us are comfortable with. If this breakdown gave you something to think about, share it. Drop your hottest take in the comments. And if you want to understand the full picture of what modern air power actually looks like, the next video is already waiting for you. The world is moving fast. Stay informed.